We're a team within UNICEF who focus on essentially preparing the organization for emerging techs and exploring where emerging tech can help us in our work. We have a blockchain team that's been around experimenting since 2015. I'm not going to talk about all of our blockchain explorations because we have a particular project that we want to talk to you about today. Excuse me. So I have with me today Meroa and Marcela, who work on our Project Connect initiative. I'll let them talk to you a little bit about that. And we also have a bounty that's connected with Project Connect, so we'll get into that and happy to answer any questions you have, particularly about Project Connect and the bounty for this weekend at ETHNewYork. Over to you.
So yeah, we'll start giving an overview of the project, what is it and what we are trying to achieve through that. And I think that I don't really need to explain this slide too much, especially if we are talking about emerging tech, blockchain, etc. We know that the very basic fundamental that you first need, it's internet. So if you don't have connectivity, all this amazing tech that we are all creating, it's useless. You cannot make it work or you cannot have access to it. And that's one of the issues that we face in many of the places where UNICEF works. That this connectivity brings many opportunities, but at the same time it's increasing the gap in between the ones that have access to these digital goods that are being created and the ones that don't have access to it. And this is something that, as UNICEF Innovation, we are trying to solve. And for that, one of the initiatives that we have, it's around schools. So UNICEF traditionally works a lot with schools. And that's when we started asking the question. So if you look at this map, and this was 18 months ago, this is Mauritania, seen through the lens of a map. And if we ask you the question of where are the schools, and if we ask you to locate them, it would be very difficult to do. It's a very simple question, and you would assume that we have the answer, but then the reality is that many governments don't know where their schools are, or the data around the location of these schools, it's not accurate many times. So that's where Project Connect started, and this is how the Mauritania looks after the mapping. The dots in this map are school locations, and the triangles are cell towers. And the schools are colored based on their coverage, mobile coverage. The ones in blue are the ones that have 2G, the ones in orange, the ones that have 3G, and the ones in red are the schools with no connectivity at all. And the red areas are not only the places where there is no connectivity, it's also a proxy for vulnerabilities. It means that in these areas, it will be more likely for a disease to spread, or it will be way harder for learning materials to reach, to supplies to deliver, etc., etc. At the end, it will be harder for, even if we want to have a vaccination campaign, for example, it will be way harder to reach these schools. So it goes way beyond the learning itself. But at the same time, we also see it as an opportunity where new businesses can go there, mobile operators can reach new users, and tech companies can also get access to new markets. And that's where we are trying to come in and try to untap this opportunity that we see happening. So since that time, the project has advanced, and today we have over 500,000 schools mapped in different countries, and we have connectivity data for more than 120,000 of them. We are also exploring new technologies to do this mapping more quickly or at scale. So we are actually exploring the use of satellite imagery and machine learning to automatically map schools. And then we are also looking into other technologies to increase the efficiencies. And what we are seeing now as well is that this map actually is leading into action. So in Kyrgyzstan, the government, thanks to the mapping, was able to understand which schools were connected and which ones not. And thanks to the mapping, they committed to connect the remaining 700 schools to the internet. This work started in October, November, and since then they've already connected over 400 schools, and they are hoping to finish the work in the coming months. So this is where we are now. And we are thinking on the next step of creating a mechanism that will start delivering or negotiating with providers for connectivity. And this is where we are also trying to think how the platform, the current version of the platform, should look like so that can fill the requirements for this connectivity. So what we are seeing is that we need to have a proper system to monitor connectivity in real time, because many times the providers deliver the connectivity and they report some numbers to the government, but the numbers don't match with reality. Or they only report these numbers once a year, and then you don't really know what's the quality of the service day to day. So we realized that a proper, accountable, transparent manner to monitor this connectivity in real time, it's really needed. And at the same time, also a more transparent way to do the whole process of interacting with the service providers, make them accountable, and make sure that whatever the government is paying for, it's being delivered at the same time. So yeah, that's where we are, and I'm gonna let now Marcela explain a little bit where we think blockchain can help and some of the technical pieces of it.
So you all are here today because you're interested in blockchain. So how does blockchain fit into all of this? We see that there are 4 main areas, and as Naroa mentioned, really the way that this can come in is around accountability and transparency. So how can you use distributed ledger systems in really low resource areas, which is mostly where UNICEF works. So there's 4 ideas up here. One is an idea around an application that will connect donors to districts. So if you look at a region, how can a donor at a very high level, so not an individual, but think a government or a major NGO that would be putting in like $1 million+, how can they look at a district and get an assessment of the connectivity in that area? At the same time, how could ISPs bid on providing connectivity to that district? So if you see that only 30% of the schools in that area are covered, how can an ISP go in, take an assessment, and make an accurate and fair bid on that? And then how can governments and the public view all of this as it's happening in a way that there is accountability? And then finally, how could we use smart contracts to make sure that the connectivity is actually delivered as we expect? So if a network provider has gotten a contract and says that they're going to be providing a certain speed or level of connection, and they're only providing it 10 days out of the month, then how could we perhaps use smart contracts to get another person in line and have them take over? So I'm going to put up just a short slide of technical specifications. I won't go too deeply into it, but just to give you an initial overview of what the kind of data that we're working with at this point is like. So we have some school data that we get generally from governments, and what it looks like, there's some administrative level data, such as where it is, what municipality it's in, what kind of school it is, things like that. And then we have connectivity data that is coming from probes that's checking what's the speed, what's the connection like. We can go back to this later if there are questions. And so what I do at UNICEF is I'm a software developer that's actually not working on this blockchain project. I work on a different project, and we are doing a map visualization around many different things, but this in particular is around connection. And as Naroa said, what we've been doing so far is when we get information, it's not in real time. So we might get a monthly update, we might get a yearly update, but we're not having that real-time data. And so what we're looking to do today is we're hoping that people who are interested in this project can help us start to piece all of these different aspects together and get things into a map that will be sort of public and open and transparent. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think that we wanted to keep it short so that there is time for questions and
Conversation.
And so what's the bounty you guys are going to be?
Stina.
Yeah, so UNICEF France has put up a bounty for 10 ETH to work on the 4 elements that Marcela mentioned. So there's also the details of the bounty is at bit.ly/blockchain connect. I can also pull it up. But we've essentially outlined those 4 elements, and for the bounty, we're asking for 2 of the 4 elements to be complete.
What's the case sensitivity on the URL?
It might be, yeah. So this is the bounty, and then it's broken up into the 4 buckets that Marcelo was talking about. So the first is, how do you actually get funding from donors, whether those be individuals, institutions, or government, to a specific region? The second part is, how do you get companies to actually, or ISPs to bid on providing connectivity for that area? The third bucket is, how do you ensure that the connectivity speeds are the real speeds? So you're not having like principals write on a form and mail those in. So using something like probes or software in the schools to record that and write that directly on chain. And then the fourth is around the management of those contracts. So there's 4 buckets to the bounty, but essentially building on what's already there from a project perspective.
So I have a quick question, because we're only allowed to submit 1 project, is what I was told.
For ETHNewYork? Yeah, so this is all one project. They're all interrelated. The 4 components, you mean? Those are just our criteria for completion.
So, it's like I had a project I was working on, but it had nothing to do with Africa, it had nothing to do with cellular phones and things. I guess we can't make the solution in addition to another project and just send it to you, or we can?
Yeah, you could work on something else and submit that.
Because they told me just 1 submission.
Oh, so that we'd have to check with the ETHGlobal team. I'm not familiar with those.
Is this bounty for ETHNewYork?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's for ETHNewYork.
Yeah, I wish they weren't so restrictive in this way. Some of us are a little ambitious.
Well, we can go talk to the ETHGlobal team afterwards. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that after.
And the idea would be that we hopefully would be able to integrate these submissions with the visualization that we are creating eventually, so that the new functionalities are also part of the solution that we are building.
And if this is something you're interested in working on beyond this weekend, we can also look at the possibility of there being follow-on bounties that are just open to the public afterwards to work on these types of projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's only going to be 1 sort of winner, right?
For this weekend, yeah.
All right.
Other questions? No? Cool. Well, we'll hang around here if you have any other questions. Otherwise, thanks for joining us.